Hey everybody, welcome to this special presentation from Gnarly Dataways, presented to you by Dremio. Again, my name is Alex Merced. I'll be your host today. And before we get started talking about the best of the Subsurface Conference 2024, so you're going to get to see a lot of clips of a lot of the best parts of the conference. And again, you can head over to dremio.com/subsurface to watch all of these on demand, also on Dremio's YouTube channel. But again, just to remind you, Dremio is the unified Lakehouse platform for self-service analytics, providing you services within 3 tiers, sort of unified analytics, connecting all your data sources, a powerful SQL engine that can federate queries across all those data sources, helping you unify those analytics and basically create a sort of central access layer where you can govern and access your data, along with Lakehouse management features to make moving to a data Lakehouse architecture even easier, because Dremio can just automatically maintain those Lakehouse tables for you, which is pretty cool. And honestly, the best way to try it out is to get hands-on. So you can scan this QR code on the left to actually try out Dremio right from your laptop, so you can get hands-on and see the experience yourself. And here are some other end-to-end tutorials where you can start actually taking data from a database, ingesting it into Iceberg using Dremio, and serve a Apache Superset BI dashboard all from your laptop and actually see the end-to-end experience from any of these blogs. And you can find many more tutorials like these over there at dremio.com/blog. But with no further ado, let's get into the best of Subsurface 24. There was really many amazing talks this year at Subsurface 2024. It was an amazing event, definitely a couple of days to really remember. So we're going to highlight some of the best pieces. So we're going to start off with many of the keynote talks at Dremio. So first, we're going to start off with the opening keynote from Dremio CEO Sender Kumar, talking about freedom, creativity, and results, the promise of an open and autonomous data platform. And in this clip, he'll be talking about sort of summarizing some of the many benefits that really make Dremio a very unique platform.
But I'm especially excited to announce support for AWS Graviton. Now, why is this important? Back to the price performance story. This graphic shows you a movement of going from one EC2 instance to another. And what you can see is a out-of-the-box 30% improvement in performance. That's pretty magical. Literally tomorrow, point your engines at a different node type, probably spend 2-3 minutes doing that, and you're getting 30% price performance improvement. That's pretty powerful. Imagine going to your finance partner and saying, I just cut my hardware budget by 30%. That is pretty powerful. We're excited to partner with Amazon on this. Just an example of the type of improvements we can deliver with Dremio. Now, the beauty of that is that you don't need to wait for a vendor to change their underlying hardware. You just get that benefit automatically. And I also want to share some benchmarks. Now, I'll be the first to admit, benchmarks are not everything. But they're a data point. They're a data point to convey at least a way to keep score to a degree. And so this is the 1 terabyte TPC-DS benchmark. And when you look at the data, you can see that with Dremio, you're getting a 70% performance improvement relative to Snowflake, and over 100% relative to Trino. Why is this important? Well, this means hardware savings, team. This means a fraction of the infrastructure you need. Now, benchmarks aren't everything, as I said when I started the conversation. Those benchmarks have to tie to what customers are telling us. This is what customers tell us. These are real savings from customers. We've left the names off to protect the innocent. But what I can tell you is they tell us, I was working with this vendor and I came to you and I had delivered 7-figure savings. 7-figure savings. Greater than 50% of their budget savings. I can tell you this gets me up in the morning. When I see these sort of savings for customers, we know we can deliver a ton of value. This is powerful. So yes, the benchmarks are nice, but man, customers telling you we delivered some outcomes for them, where I started the conversation today, customer outcome. This is customer outcome. Now, truth be told, are we the end-all be-all for all analytics at your organization? No. But if you rely on open, flexible formats, and you rely on something like Dremio to give you cost and price performance improvements, in addition to all the acceleration and self-service technologies, you can pick which solution and platform you need for what outcome. And certainly for SQL, we intend to be that.
Next, let's take a look at the next keynote, which is Next Gen Data Ops with Iceberg and Git for Data, which was given by Tomer Sharon, founder of Dremio, and he's talking about a lot of our new ingestion features for helping ingest data into Apache Iceberg tables into your data lake. Let's listen to Tomer and what he has to say about data ingestion.
And so today we're happy to announce the availability of auto ingest pipelines. And what this allows you to do is not just run a SQL command to do a one-time ingestion of data, but this gives you a continuous stream of ingestion. So if you have an S3 bucket, Azure storage folder, and data is getting dropped into there, files are periodically getting dropped into that location, we'll now automatically ingest that on a continuous basis into an Iceberg table. And this happens with basically zero effort, right? And so you create a pipe. As you can see here, well, actually, you create the table that you want, the Iceberg table, if you don't already have it, and then you create a new object called a pipe. So you create pipe, run that statement, and then the data is automatically ingested into the Iceberg table. Dremio will sign up or register to get notifications from AWS, and then Azure as well, and basically automatically understand when new data is arriving and load that into the table. So you don't have to do anything, and data is immediately ingested. There's not this long wait period or once an hour polling kind of thing. It happens based on a notification from the object storage. And so auto ingest pipelines make it really easy when you have that continuous stream of kind of files arriving and you want to get that into an Iceberg table. Sometimes what you have is a scenario where you're not going from files, but you're going from, say, a Kafka cluster or a Kafka topic, right? Data is being pushed into Kafka. And so what we're also announcing today is the availability of ingestion from Kafka into Iceberg. So now if you have data producers that are pushing data into a Kafka topic, you can, again, with very little effort, this is based on Kafka Connect, you can have that data flow directly into an Iceberg table, automatically update records as they're coming in, and you have an Iceberg table in your system ready to be queried with Dremio's query engine, with Spark, with Snowflake, with anything else. So 2 new ways to ingest kind of streams of data, right? Continuously arriving data. And so if you look at where we are today as a whole, both things that we've had and we've added in the last year, but also the things that we just released and announced today, we have the broadest range of capabilities in terms of ingesting data into Iceberg. So you can see here, we have SQL commands to get data in from object storage, right? A copy into, kind of the most important one there. We have auto ingest pipes, where you can create pipe and ingest the data on a continuous basis from files. There's ingestion through Kafka. That's for streams. You can get data in from a database, and you can also work with many of our partners to ingest data from various SaaS applications and various databases, right? Companies like Fivetran, Airbyte, Upsolver, and others, right? Which make it also easy to get data from hundreds of different locations into an Iceberg table. So we work with these companies to provide that kind of seamless experience with Iceberg specifically.
In the next keynote, AI and Insight Foundations, Data Access and Quality, Deliver Innovation. Here we see a discussion with Rahim Bojani, SVP of Engineering at Dremio, and Mark Sear, Director of AI, Data and Integration over there at Maersk. And what is a great conversation, just talking about sort of like what to do and what not to do. Let's take a look at that conversation.
I think there are things that people are thinking too much about and things that they're not thinking enough about. I think, for example, if you take Gen AI, people are model obsessed. It's this model versus that model, it's this model. And the thing is, if you get obsessed with that, then what happens is a model will change. I mean, I like you, subscribe to numerous emails, and every day there's a different best model that's telling me. And if I spent my life just plugging and unplugging those models, I'd never get any further. Yeah. So I think what people are doing is what techies have always done, which is focus on the tech and not on the people side of things. Focus on the business side of things. And that's what I hope people don't do, but I can see people beginning to do it already. Focusing on the tech, not on the people.
In a lot of ways, what you describe is a real culture change.
Yeah.
Right? And given your history, given your journey, how do you impart that in a large organization like Maersk?
I think the only way you can impart that is to impart it to your local group of people and hope that your team can then become evangelists for that opinion, for that approach, and go out and find other people, if you like. I suppose you could say the Mormons got it right, like they go and knock on the doors and do that type of thing there. And I think that applies to what we want to do here as well. So
Practice what you preach.
Practice what you preach, very good thing.
Yeah. Let's talk about, I spoke about the foundation of Dremio. You've actually taken that and built on top of it to service the needs of your business. You touched upon that slightly. Let's double click on some of that. Is how a small team like yours, how have they been able to empower a global business that way?
Well, I think there are two aspects to that. First of all, we are still nascent on that journey.
Yeah.
Okay, not the whole enterprise is there. We've got some really fantastic ambassadors. Shout out to Igor in London in particular. Super ambassador. I know he's on your case all the time.
No,
Don't worry, Igor. He's working on it.
Yeah. I like Igor. I like people who are direct.
Smart ambassadors. Super direct. So we empower those. They'll drive that forward. I think it comes down to quality people. Number one.
Yeah.
You have to have quality. You have to have people that are passionate, and passion is something I think that's really hard to find.
Yeah.
But when you find that passion, I'm very lucky with my team. We've got a guy in Singapore, Ben, super passionate guy. When he speaks, you can feel that passion come out of his body. We've got Dipmala in India, same thing, passion.
Right.
That's the most important thing for me. Passion. Create evangelists, that the evangelists go on and create further evangelists. And no, it's going to take time. It's never going to be overnight.
Next, let's take a look at looking forward, Apache Iceberg and the Iceberg ecosystem, which was a panel with many people from the Apache Iceberg world that I moderated. Here, we're taking a look at an answer from Casey Kars, Principal Product Manager at Dremio, just talking about making the world easier for Apache Iceberg users.
I think the one thing that we've tried to be very upfront about and is challenging for a lot of customers to grasp at first is kind of the safe table operations dynamics of Iceberg. So with serial isolation, making sure that you're not running concurrent DML at the same time and understanding that, I think there's a little bit of education that we could do, a little bit of guarding that we could also do to prevent, concurrent optimizations, one of them from failing their merge. That's one area that we've seen customers struggle with implementing it at scale, and we've provided some guidance and best practices, but it'd be great to bake that into the product, or bake that into the spec over time. But it's, again, one of those things that I think early adopters are going to live with, and it's going to be fine. And maybe this is an enterprise capability that we're just starting to see the feedback on. But I think just making sure that we have the concurrency dynamics worked out really well as we operate at scale is going to be particularly important with concurrent writes from multiple engines, and just making sure that that's super robust, super rigid. And I think that's a huge differentiator once we nail that, because it really then will be the table format for any engine. And I don't think that problem has quite been nailed yet, but it is something that we're looking at and kind of working with customers to understand the requirements so that we can drive that to ground.
In the next keynote, Beyond Theory, Data Mesh in Action, there was a panel that was hosted by Nick Atchison, Field CDO over here at Dremio. And in this exchange he had with Zhamak Dehghani, founder and CEO of NextData, they talk about sort of, data contracts and data mesh and sort of where all these intertwine and get implemented. So let's kind of see that clip.
I've done a couple implementations in my career, and one of the biggest things that, even when I'm out with our customers, helping design what their transitionary architecture looks like with some of these principles, the one space that folks continue to end up hitting later that we try to plan for, but frankly, I don't see that the market, technology-wise, has caught up yet, which is definitely around that contracts part. Really understanding what it looks like of the life cycle of some of these data products, even differentiating obviously between enterprise products are obviously different than data products that people are generally, you treat each of those differently, right? And how you think about the maturity of those assets over time, and how the consumption of that, and whether it's data drift, right, or model drift, or schema drift, and metadata drift, and how all those things continue to mature over time. This is why I was really excited having Chad here speaking yesterday, and I know he's writing the book right now on data contracts, and I see that getting a lot of momentum, but I still haven't seen the community really rally around a clear solution for that yet. And I think the last one too is really, if you continue to think about not just governance in the enterprise, but as you're even thinking about those extensibility of those entitlements outside, as we even see data products even being shared in other external organizations and how those get connected in. So those are ones if anybody has seen those, please throw them in the comments because I would definitely love to check them out. But Zhamak, are you going to add something?
Yeah, I think the problem, frankly, is more basic than that. I think one of the foundational concepts within data mesh was this kind of autonomous unit that would enable exchange of value, enable exchange of reliable, trustworthy data, will enable contracts, will enable traceability. And that concept was, termed data product. But that concept has been taken, and because there hasn't been any reference implementation of that we rallied around and say, this is what it means. And intentionally, I left it with, I defined it as a set of like 8 characteristics, like call them DAV units for short. And it's in the book that is, it's something that is discoverable, it's something that is lively, it's something that, it encompasses all of the pieces that you need, such as your contracts and policies and the runtime of the compute of data production. Like there's a lot goes to define and bring that data product to life. And I think as an industry, we don't have a reference implementation that then in itself can unleash innovation through coalition. Everybody has their own interpretation, like even around the 3 of us, if we ask what is it, we probably have 3 different, like what does it actually look like? We'll have 3 different definitions. Some people call views with metadata data products, some people call files data products. I call an application a data product, right? So there's different views on it. And I think to me, that's the catalyst. When I said there's a catalyst missing for unlocking innovation and moving fast and materially make an impact, to me, that's that. And until that comes to exist, we're going to be like, jamming in contracts where? On top of what? So it's just we don't have places to attach these missing capabilities that you're mentioning, Nick, like policy as code and governance and security. Where do we hang off these things? We don't have that catalyst. So for me, that's the piece that's missing. That's that takes a lot of energy of me and my team right now to at least build one version of it, right?
Now, in this clip between and from the vast and Dremio astonishing speed and accelerated ROA for data presentation, Carlene Tartau, field CTO and head of strategy at Vast Data, gives a pretty cool demonstration of how Vast and Dremio can work together hands-on. So let's go take a look at this hands-on demo.
I'm going to do a demo. And so I can show you firsthand a demonstration of the Vast and Dremio environment so you can see it for yourself. So what I'm going to show you today is actually a sample data pipeline that we dreamed up for our environment, starting with some data that we've pulled from the U.S. National Weather Service. We have a fairly straightforward Python script that pulled this data. It actually stopped a few days ago. I got kicked off my server, so it stopped calling. But it downloaded XML files and then created arrow objects and inserted them into the VAST database. And then on top of that, on top of the VAST database, we're just using the new Dremio connector for the VAST database to connect to query the data. And we're going to create a few views, and it's always more fun to use a visualization rather than just showing you SQL queries. So I'll show you the Dremio connector for Apache Superset to visualize the data. So what I'm sharing now is this is the VAST interface. This is the VAST data store interface. And what this is showing you is a bunch of storagey stuff. It's showing you things like the data reduction rate, which is 2.8 to 1, the number of data nodes and compute nodes that are up. But really what you want to look at is the VAST database. And so if I scroll over here, I can see I have 3 databases, and in DB0, I have something called METAR data, which is the meteorological data that we're going to use. And it has things like poll time, observation time, etc. And in this data, basically the United States Weather Service, the National Weather Service, has something like 5,000 weather stations all over the country. And they're constantly polling for weather data, and they're recording all of this information, like longitude, latitude, temperature, dew point, wind, visibility, blah, 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 pressure, stuff like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this data. And so this is just the VAST UI, the VAST UI. And so this is the dashboard that I'm going to load. And you'll notice that none of the data is there yet. So it doesn't exist on the views that are used to drive this data. So now I'm going to go to Dremio. And you can see this Dremio instance is fairly empty with the exception of the vast S3 object storage. So you can then go to add source. And if you go down to the bottom, you'll see vast data. Now this is a beta, so we're missing the icon. It's coming in the next release of Dremio, though, I promise. And so I'm going to be very creative and call this VDB. And I'm, of course, going to cheat and copy and paste my information from here into my connection. Please don't look and don't screenshot my secret key. Thank you very much. All right. So then I save that. And now I can see the same thing I saw in the vast database view, where I can see my VDB, and then inside I can see the two different things. I also, I want to change my number of splits and subsplits. This is just how the parallelism works, just based on my server. So so now in DB0, you can see my Metar data is there. And this is actually just the same data, and now I can query it. I'm only going to show you the first, 10 records, because it's actually several million records. And so let's say we can also look at the number of records. Let's see how many we have. I think it's 11 or 18 or something like that. 18 million records, 18.5 million records. Okay. So, all right, what we're going to do from here is we can also look at the last time it ran. So the last observation time that I pulled before my machine got rebooted was May 1st. All right, May 1st at 1:30 UTC. Okay, so that's my most recent data. So now what I'm going to do is I want to see, I have two views that drive this dashboard that I want to create. And so the first one, first of all, I want to put them in a bucket. So I want to make sort of data products, if you will. I'm going to call it Metar weather data. I just copied that in, or auto-completed, because I've done this before. And I'm going to cheat by, again, copying the SQL for these views. So I go to the query editor, open it up, paste it in, and you'll see the poll time. This is the current data. So I'm just pulling the current data, the current most recent poll. So you'll see there's 4,800 records from each weather. There's one record from each weather station. I'm going to save it as a view. Oops, not clicking. Okay, oops, sorry. And I'm going to call this Metar current poll. I'll save that as a view. And then I'm going to do another one, and this is the last 7 days worth of data. And I'm doing a couple of quick calculations, like changing, and I'm going to save this as a view as well, changing the elevation from meters to feet, that kind of thing. Sorry. Okay. And then, again, I'm going to call this Metar last 7 dedupe in the same bucket. And there are my views. And now, clicking too much. If I load my dashboard, you'll see all of this really cool data shows up because these views now exist. And so you'll see, again, I have 18.5 million record counts. I've got the most recent poll time, roughly 5,000 weather stations. You can see that current weather conditions are up top. Again, this is just superset. And then down at the bottom, I have visibility and flight conditions. This is like, I don't know, aviation data or something.
Redefining Cloud Trust, perspective of the Schwartz Group. In this presentation, Daniel Gross, Cloud Product Manager at Schwartz Group, and Aman Kaura, Product Manager at Schwartz Group, talk about the Stackit platform, this basically sort of sovereign cloud platform that is making use of Dremio and other pieces to create a powerful cloud solution for Europe. And we'll just watch the clip.
Let's have a little bit of a deeper look into the Stackit data and AI platform. At its core, we have a Lakehouse architecture with Dremio at its base. So that is really the core of our data and AI platform, our Lakehouse. And attached to that, we have different services providing different kinds of functionalities like ingestion, processing, visualization, and some more. When it comes to ingestion, we are especially focusing on having an easy to use application, and easy where it is easy to attach especially new data providers to, since that is what enables the organizational scaling for us. And besides that, the support for large scale workloads must be there, obviously, and we are covering that as well. When it comes to processing, it needs to be really easy to spin up new clusters to for some large-scale data crunching of some sorts, and we are doing exactly that. The same for visualization. It's getting especially important when we're talking about data analytics, BI analytics and stuff, and it's really important to have some visualization options available here, and Stackit, again, is providing exactly that.
In this presentation of Beyond Tables, What's Next for Apache Iceberg in Data Architecture, co-creator of Iceberg and CEO and co-founder of Tabular, Ryan Blue, talks a little bit about sort of like does the future of Apache Iceberg catalogs look like? What are the problems that need to be solved? And discusses a little bit about that. Let's see what Ryan has to say.
So let's take a look at what else is needed in the centralized or modular space, and essentially explain why is Iceberg working on all this other stuff that's not tables. So first of all, if you want a centralized data layer, you end up needing a catalog standard. So before the start of the Iceberg project, at the start we had different catalogs everywhere. Some people had Hive, some people had Glue. Netflix had our own catalog called Metacat. We knew a lot of other organizations that had their own catalogs. And we were also providing all of the compute services. So we made a simple API that you could plug in your own catalog. As the space matured, and now we have closed source databases, and we need everything to essentially talk the same language in order to connect to catalogs. This is that pluggability, or the idea that a new database engine should be able to act on your data and understand what tables are out there. So the community a couple of years ago came together and started on the REST spec, or the REST protocol standard, just to ensure that connectivity. This is going really, really well. There are a lot of organizations adopting it. I'm hoping that this week we see some announcements about this. But the REST standard, I think, is quickly becoming the standard for catalog interaction. And we also use this as an opportunity to fix several long-standing issues with Iceberg and sort of the metadata model. So that is super important, so that we have that pluggability. Adoption across engines is increasing, and that's really step two, is to get everything talking that same language. Then there are extensions to that REST standard, and we're already working on a set of those to make sure that it's easier to work with data and to do things that you need to at the catalog level. So we're going to talk a little bit more later about identity passing and access control and things like that. But really, like, we're making good progress here towards server-side scan planning, so that any language can go interact with a table and get back a list of files that it needs to read, making the Iceberg clients far easier to write and maintain, and also do things like append files via post. AWS is working on both of these features, and it's a really, really great area to see improvements in. So huge thanks to AWS for driving the way there.
On the next presentation, which is on-premises lakehouses, how NetApp and Dremio enable on-premises data lakehouse architecture, Vishnu Vardhan, Director of Product Management at NetApp, talks about basically the benefits of pairing sort of on-premise object storage, and particularly with like NetApp's storage grid solution with Dremio, and taking a look at basically the kind of benefits they saw when they implemented this mix of solutions. in their own world?
So what was our overall takeaway here? For us, fundamentally, we were able to improve and reduce our compute by about 60%. That was a significant compute saving. On that 60% compute reduction, we were able to get a 10 to 20x performance improvement, right? So if we didn't reduce that compute, the performance would be even faster. It just goes to show, I think these two are two different axes. Just the scale of change is exponential, right? So 60% reduction in compute, 10 to 20x performance increase. We were able to get a net TCO savings of about 30%. And I think, most importantly, the number of users that we had, right? We started off, as I said earlier, at about 130 users. We are now double the number of users, and we haven't had any query impact time. Our queries today are completing in 2 minutes. And I think, in context is what we were seeing before, which was 45 minutes. So just the max query times are so different. I'm not even talking about the median and the best case, right? Just the worst case is so much better that I think we are very, very satisfied with the overall migration.
In the next presentation, we're talking about optimizing costs, user experience, and performance with Vanguard's Dremio implementation. In this conversation, Hitesh Dundi, Enterprise Analytics Product Leader at Vanguard, is having a discussion with Reed Maloney, CMO here at Dremio, basically about sort of the Dremio experience and basically what value it can bring to Vanguard. So let's take a look at that clip.
Was there a specific, I run the marketing team at Dremio, but we drink our own champagne, so we have a Dremio Lakehouse that we use to do all of our own analytics. And when I think about that, is I can put pressure back onto our central analytics team, and I could also but that could also be something that team comes up with by themselves and says, hey, look, like we want to provide this as a capability. What was sort of the interchange in terms of making that happen for you guys at Vanguard?
So when it comes to specific details on what actually constitute towards that, I would like to go back to the fact that data strategy has multiple components to it. Like data being the main component, so how reliable our existing data is, and how well are we accessing that data, and what are the platforms that we are using it. And on top of that, there are governance considerations, security considerations, and the entire gamut of things, and bringing value on top of that, on top of all the investments that we make as an organization, and bringing out value from any investments. It's actually tricky, and it comes down from different asks from different lines of businesses. There are different. Vanguard, as you know, is a huge enterprise, and we have multiple lines of businesses having their own data teams working together. And then all these data teams together, the kind of challenges that they are facing are universal across Vanguard. Be it the cost aspect, the performance, and the user experience. And we want to streamline that as an organization, and then that's the reason why we went ahead with Dremio.
In the next one, let's talk about Hadoop modernization for financial services with Nomura. Here we have Connor Brennan, basically in charge of data lake modernization at Nomura, talking about the benefits they saw over there at Nomura by taking a unique approach of mixing Minio and Dremio together in a new architecture that has shown many benefits. Let's take a look at Connor talk about that.
This maybe sounds a little bit obvious, but it wasn't immediately obvious to me, right? So implicit in the kind of segregation of compute and storage, if we think of it from a Dremio perspective, for that to work, you've got to have an ultra-fast network, right? And so when we looked at the HPC appliance, because it's an appliance, the Dremio nodes are on a physically separate servers. The network that we would need internally between the two, we just didn't have. And it was literally tens of millions of dollars that we would need to support that. And so the reason I showed you the hardware that we have in the beginning, that's relatively new. So we wanted to see, can we repurpose that hardware and co-locate MinIO and Dremio on the same hardware, using Kubernetes to scale out Dremio. This is all on-prem, okay? So this is not necessarily a paradigm that MinIO had seen before, but we worked with them on it, and ultimately we got their sign-off on it as a reference architecture. And so we have this now running in dev, staging, and next month we'll be releasing our first workloads to production. Our benchmarking, we basically took 4 nodes in non-prod, and we rebuilt those as 4 nodes out of our Hadoop with the disk on it. We rebuilt those as MinIO nodes, and we ran the same workload using what I mentioned earlier, our workload replayer, and we were able to show basically 13.9% kind of north, so to speak, for MinIO versus Hadoop. So the main constraint of it being at least as performant, we were able to meet. It has many other benefits for us. One that I touch on, I mentioned earlier, Hadoop has the 3-factor replication. MinIO uses a thing called erasure encoding, which is a little bit similar to RAID. But long story short, you get 75% of the addressable disk space versus 33. So you're getting more than double usable disk space straight off. So for us, that's a huge benefit as well. I'm not even talking about licensing fees. This is just kind of on a pure kind of physical disk comparison.
In this next conversation, this is a unified data frame API for different data backends. Here we're going to have Chip Hewen from Voltron Data, VP of AI and OSS, talking about sort of the Ibis project. So the Ibis is sort of like this universal data frame API, and it's pretty cool. I'll let Chip take it from there.
So the way Ibis works is that you can write code in Ibis API, and then we compile into the intermediate implementations, which are relational expressions, which is SQL equivalent. And then from there, depending on how or where you want to run the query, it will compile into the backend. So for example, you write the code and say, hey, I wanted to run it using Polars. We'll compile them to Polar. And then if you want to run it on Snowflake, we will compile into Snowflake SQL. And similarly, if you want to run it in Flink, we can compile it into Flink SQL. So it makes it very flexible. You can swap between different engines in just like one line of code. So I can show this. Here. So here's one of our team members. This is really cool tool. So first of all, you can see the code across different engine, right? So here is when you connect to a DuckDB table, and here's the code. Or if you want to connect to Flink, it's the same code. If you want to connect to Spark, so you just change the engines, and the code is very, very similar. So this means that by using Ibis, once you can just support multiple backends out of the box. And the second, if you want to change the backends, for example, from local to remote, you can just do so by just changing one line of code.
Now, sticking on sort of the OSS sort of theme from the last one, here we see a conversation about Apache XTable, which is an incubating project talking about interoperability among Lakehouse table formats from my good friend and former colleague, Dipankar Mazumdar, who's now staff data engineering advocate at OneHouse. And let's hear what Dipankar has to say.
Okay. So I just wanted to I'm not going to do a demo in the brevity of time, but this is what we kind of recently did, and I have a blog and I can share it later as well. Basically, the idea is that Dremio doesn't support hoodie tables today. It's mostly like Iceberg and Delta in a way. But we wanted to show, okay, what if Dremio has a hoodie table and how you can use it, right? So the use case was let's say a team A in a particular organization, they are using hoodie with Spark to write some kind of streaming based workloads, and they're writing data into hoodie, right? And then there's another team B in an organization who uses Dremio with Iceberg, but they also want to use the data set from the hoodie one, right? And they want to use it and merge it in Dremio and do their analytics in Tableau or whatever BI tools. So what do they do in this case? So in this case, what we did is we used XTable to translate that metadata. It's a simple translation. So the hoodie table will be exposed as an Iceberg table to Dremio, and that way Dremio just reads it as an Iceberg table, and you can do your analytics.
Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed all those different clips from Subsurface. There's so many more to check out. So do head over to dremio.com/subsurface, or head over to the Dremio YouTube channel at youtube.com/Dremio to check out the Subsurface 2024 playlist and see many of the great talks, or see the remainder of the talks that we saw clips from. But again, if you want to get hands-on with Dremio, do scan that QR code on the left to get hands-on with your laptop. And if you're ready to take your Dremio story into production, scan that QR code on the right to get to our Getting Started page. And again, here are those other tutorials in case you want to kind of do the whole hands-on end-to-end experience, doing data ingestion, serving BI dashboards, all from your laptop. Again, thank you for being here today. I hope to see you all at Subsurface 2025 next year. Have a great day and enjoy. This is the end of this gnarly data waste.